Let's get over to Kristina Partsinevelos. She's at the NASDAQ. Has more on what all this could mean for Intel. Fascinating story in terms of what you can imagine with a 10% holder. He went on to say as well that they don't want governance rights if, in fact, they do get there. But a lot yet to come here, Kristina.
Yeah, they don't want voting rights, and I'll get to that. But this is essentially, if we're talking about the SoftBank, it's a $2 billion lifeline from the private sector. And shareholders really need to understand what this means for their investment. SoftBank, like you said, is going to be buying up 2% of the company. Intel tells me it's a primary issuance, meaning that it's going to be new shares and fresh capital, but that also means stock dilution. Shares are up because investors are seeing this as SoftBank's vote of confidence or backing as more than just money. It's credibility that could attract other institutions and AI partnerships, especially through SoftBank's OpenAI and ARM connections. SoftBank is invested in ARM. ARM wants to build a chip. Why not build a chip on Intel? Intel, like you said, has also had talks with the Trump administration about this potential 10% government stake using CHIPS Act funding. And David, like you spoke to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, he did say the plan wouldn't give the United States government voting rights, even though it could make the federal government Intel's largest shareholder. At least that means U.S. taxpayers have a chance to make money on their tax dollars, right? No free lunch. But Wedbush's Matt Bryson raises a critical concern. If the United States owns 10% of Intel, the government won't let the company make decisions that are best for shareholders. Intel couldn't move production to TSMC or divest fabs to optimize profitability, something that's been discussed by the board of directors, even if those are some of smart business moves. Bryson from Wedbush calls it, quote, a raw deal. Intel went from getting grants with minimal strings attached to potentially giving up 10% ownership for the exact same money. Meanwhile, competitors like TSMC and Samsung get grants without any equity stakes. SoftBank's investment does bring strategic value, but potential government ownership creates a fundamental conflict between U.S. manufacturing interest and what's actually best for Intel shareholders.
Yeah, very interesting, Kristina. I think Stacey Raskin also at Bernstein saying somewhat similar things in terms of, well, this doesn't seem as good as getting free money, which essentially the CHIPS Act was providing. And Secretary Besson on Squawk Box this morning was asked by the team, you know, what about customers? Because that's what they really need. And he said, well, we're not going to intervene and force customers to do business with Intel by buying or making chips at their fabs. What do you make of it all?
So that is precisely why the run-up in the stock might be unwarranted. Just a lot of momentum traders that are trading on the headlines because it's not addressing the underlying core problem of Intel's manufacturing issues and the fact that even their 14A, which is something they talked about, it's a more advanced manufacturing process. You had Lip-Bu Tan, the CEO of Intel, warn that they are willing to essentially cut down that 14A process if they don't find an external customer. The CFO has warned back in May at a tech conference, JP Morgan tech conference, that they would need to sign on several big customers in order to keep this foundry afloat, which they're hoping will break even in 2027. And David, you brought up the 10% stake. That comes from money that was already supposed to go to Intel, right? So that's not net new. Intel has probably incorporated that with their investments. Then you have this $2 billion from SoftBank, which is, yes, great. It's a cash flow injection, but it's not necessarily going to move the needle when these foundries can cost anywhere above $30 billion to build and run. So that is already a loss-making business for Intel right now. Can they change their core manufacturing process? UBS seems to think maybe Broadcom and NVIDIA are interested in 18A, a certain version of 18A, which is another manufacturing process, and that maybe Apple would be interested in 14A, the more advanced one. But these are all just maybes. Nobody has set out, hey, I'm going to use Intel right now to make my chips in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
No one has done that.
No. And meanwhile, where are they on, for example, Ohio and the big plans they had for a fab there and things of that nature that seem to be significantly delayed?
That is what I'm smiling right now because this is where politics comes into play. Ohio's a swing state. This is a major win for President Trump to say that here is Intel. They have the extra money. They have the cash injection to keep this plant afloat. Intel had previously said that they were going to cut 15% of their workforce this year, right? That's a lot of jobs, a lot of voters who might be unhappy with this. So here's an opportunity not only for Intel to get the ball rolling again in a swing state, and it's not just about Intel. You have SoftBank that is buying up the Foxconn EV plant in Ohio as well. So there's a lot of, I guess, wins from President Trump, or at least wins stuff that he could say are wins to get voters on his side. But it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to turn around quickly because the plant has been delayed so much. And it's really difficult to get foundries off the ground up and running with chips at top quality yields, meaning that there will be no mistakes in the chips.
Yeah. You may get an argument on to whether Ohio is still a swing state, Kristina, but
let's not get into that.
That's for
right?
another. Yeah, I mean, he won it pretty decisively. I know. Thank you so much. Great information.